Alright, so I'm going to teach how to use the custom game editor. Alright, so here when you start you have a list of the included game types, which are green, and those you cannot edit, but you can duplicate them, and you cannot delete them. But let's see, I'm going to delete these game types that I've made, and then let's create a new one. So create new, and you can see the default is just these blank gray squares, and there's no game functionality, so all you do is eventually you'll just fill up the board. So the first thing we want to do, first let's name it my new game, and then I'm going to create a new block type, and I'll go to new block, and I'm going to call this block my square block. And the first thing you have to do is give it a sprite, although you don't have to give it a sprite if you include it in a piece which has a sprite, but we'll look at that later. So I'll start off and I'll give it a square, and if I hit preview right now, you'll notice that it's a black square, and that's because I have not given it any colors. So I need to start off by giving it a color. I'll give it purple. And if I hit preview, you see now we have a purple square, and it's just the first square, because all of the blocks after that, you'll see if I play, they're all going to be our gray block. And the reason for that is because we haven't assigned this block to anything yet. So I will assign it as use in normal pieces and click this. And now every new piece that's made will include this block type. So, and then if I give it another color, let's give it green. Let's find green. I just saw it. Here it is. Now it will randomly assign those two colors to this block. So we have a nice mixture of green and purple. So now I'm going to make another block type, and I'm going to call this my circle block, and I'll give it the circle sprite. And if I hit preview, the first block is always the one that you have selected, and that's for convenience. In a normal game, you would actually never get this block unless we've assigned it. So I'm going to assign it to normal pieces, and I'm going to give it a color. Let's give it red, and let's give it yellow. Here we go. So click preview again, and now you see we have yellow circles and red circles. You can see red and yellow for the circles, and it randomly selects between the colors of the block and also the two different block types. So we should have red circles, yellow circles, green squares, and purple squares, and that's exactly what we have. So this is good. We could make a whole game that just uses these single pieces, or these single block pieces. That's the default. The default is just a single block piece, and we can hold it, we can switch it, and we could create a whole game like that. Or if we wanted more complexity in our pieces, if we wanted more than just one block, that's where the piece designer comes in. So I'll go to the piece designer, and I'll create a new piece, and I'm going to call this one 2 blocks, 2 random blocks. And if I want to override the color, if I want the color to be the same, I can override that. If I want the entire piece to have a single sprite, I could assign that here, but I'm not going to do that. So the first thing is we'll go into the rotation designer, and select rotation 0, and you can see the default piece is just a single block, and we can make it 2 blocks by clicking, and now we have a piece that is just the 2 blocks, but you can't rotate it. You have to create the rotations separately because who knows what direction you want it to be. Maybe you want it to change shape. So I'll create a rotation here, new, and you can see in the preview here now I've created a full 360-degree rotation. But maybe you want it to rotate diagonally, right? I could have made it something like this in between. So that's the reason why that's like that. So and you can also load a preset if you don't want to create a custom one. So here's all the ones from all the preset game types. So let's save and close, and you can see we have our piece, and I can rotate it. And every time I click preview, it will regenerate this piece with it's always using circles. Why is it always using circles? Block designer, square. Oh, the reason it's always using circles is because I had circles selected, so it actually takes that into account. So this will always be squares now that I've selected squares. But in a real game, it would have randomly selected between the two. So and I'll show you that. You'll notice that it's only the first piece that it's generating with the 2 random blocks. So to make it, and then it's always the single block piece. The reason is because I haven't assigned this piece yet. So I'm going to click use as normal piece, same as the blocks. And now you see every piece is using this piece type. And you can see that they're randomly generated using both of our 2 block types. So it's pretty cool. And so maybe we want to have a piece that's see, sometimes it'll randomly generate it with 2 of the same, but maybe we want it to be 2 circles all the time. So instead of 2 random blocks, let's call it 2 circle piece. And what we want to do then is in override block types, we can give it circles, save, and now you'll see it's always circles. And then we would create a new piece and call it 2 square piece. And this one will do the same thing. We could create a new rotation, or we could load a preset. Let's just load the preset, and you can see it's done it for us, although this preset is actually the opposite direction from our last one. That's okay though. And so this one will assign square blocks, and you can see now I have to assign it. So use as normal piece, and now you see we have a piece that's all squares and a piece that's all circles. So that's pretty good. And then let's make a special piece type. Let's call this one our special type. Special type, and it'll be some power up. Oops. Special type. Okay, and this one will always be white. And you could see. Let's see. Why is that not working? Edit. So first of all, let's make it 4 blocks. Let's make it a 4-block solid piece, and there it is. But the override color isn't working. I'm actually not sure why. Maybe that only works if it's a special type. No, it's still flashing. Well, it's flashing now, but it's not Overriding individual block colors. Well, that seems to be something that I have to fix. Perhaps if the block doesn't have a color, and we always use that, that might be why. No, it's actually just ignoring this. So I found a bug and I have to fix it. Alright. Interesting. Okay, so this one, let's see what happens. Is that orange? No, it's red. So it does work, but only if it has a sprite. That's what I have to fix. Okay, now I understand. So the color does work, but only if it's assigned a sprite. I need to fix that. It should override the blocks. You could see if I use a diamond gem. Now it's a giant diamond. And you could see if I use a blob, it's a big circle. If I use a square, it should be a big square. Alright. So you kind of get the idea of how the piece sprites work. And this should always override the block color. Let's see if I set the block color to purple, what happens. Interesting. So the sprite color only overrides if the block doesn't have a color. That seems non-ideal, so I'm going to fix that. If I set this to none, it uses the piece color. Interesting. So alright, that's not really as described, so I'm going to fix that. Okay, so anyway, we've got our game with a flashing special piece and our two other piece types, and let's turn off the hold piece. We don't want that. We can't hold the thing anymore, although this should go away. And let's only have one next piece that you could see. Oh, well, I guess that includes the current piece. There we go. And let's make it that 5 of the same color in a row or column. Makes a line, so that should work right there. Cool. And let's make the special piece do something fancy. Let's turn it into it'll turn into a normal piece after 3 other things are placed. Let's see what happens when that does that. Oh, it just disappeared because they don't have any color. Yep, that definitely needs to be fixed. Ah, they're still black. Alright, well that's a bug.